it's all about learning. And all of that data, whether it's positive or negative, is super valuable.
Welcome to Honest E-Commerce, a podcast dedicated to cutting through the BS and finding actionable advice for online store owners. I'm your host, Chase Clymer, and I believe running a direct-to-consumer brand does not have to be complicated or a guessing game. On this podcast, we interview founders and experts who are putting in the work and creating real results. I also share my own insights from running our top Shopify consultancy, Electric Eye. We cut the fluff in favor of facts to help you grow your e-commerce business. Let's get on with the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Honest E-Commerce. I'm your host, Chase Clymer, and today we're welcoming to the show Johnathan from Manly Bands. How are you doing today, Johnathan?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Chase.
Oh, thanks for being here. So for people that aren't in the know, let's just quickly dive in. What is the product? What are you guys up to? What are you selling?
So at Manly Bands, we sell the most badass wedding rings on earth, with everything from your traditional precious jewelry all the way up to meteorite, wood, deer antler, and dinosaur bone.
Dinosaur bone. I have to ask, how do you, I feel like that's hard to get a hold of.
It can be, but first, let me tell you, it's cruelty free. We don't kill any dinosaurs to get this dinosaur bone. It's perfectly fine with PETA and all the other organizations. And I hope some of your viewers laughed at that joke. I say it all the time and nobody ever laughs. So hopefully this was a first. But no, it can be, but there are suppliers out there. And it's interesting because the dinosaur bone itself actually comes from museums. So when they are putting together the dinosaurs, the skeletons, and they are testing out the bones and doing different scientific things to them, there always are little shavings of dinosaur bone. So what happens is that gets typically thrown out, but now with suppliers, you're able to get some of that, and it's authentic, and we put it in our rings. People love it.
I mean, that is the epitome of that saying of sell your sawdust. And in this case, it's dinosaur bone dust, because if you have a quantity of it, there's someone out there that can figure out how to use it.
It's true. And, the really cool thing is, like all the wedding rings we sell, they have a story. They're unique. They're different. And I think that's what guys want ultimately, is something with significance, not only because it's their wedding and it marks their commitment to each other, but also something, that has a cool material, that has a history to it. And, in this case, they're hundreds of millions of years old.
Absolutely. I mean, that is one of the more unique materials that I've ever discussed on this show. So that's super cool. So let's take me back. Take me back to before starting the brand, before the RV trip, your career in Hollywood. When did you decide to make the leap? What was the series of events?
Well, it's been an interesting journey. I was actually a filmmaker first. I went to film school at Emerson in Boston, moved out to Los Angeles after graduation to become the next Steven Spielberg, as all filmmaking majors do. Of course, it's a lot harder in Los Angeles than they tell you in film school to kind of break in and start a career. But I was fortunate to do a couple of freelance gigs the first couple of years out there. Had some great jobs editing a couple small movies and music videos, things like that. Ended up producing a bunch of stuff and found my way to realize that, boy, it'd be good to have a steady job, because as anybody who's a freelancer or even as you're starting your own business, having a consistent and stable revenue stream or income stream can be difficult. And when you live in a major city that's super expensive, like Los Angeles, you quickly realize that a job is nicer than freelance work. So I was fortunate enough through some connections to get a job at Getty Images, where I worked as a supervisor producer for red carpet events, movie premieres, film festivals, and things like that for about 10 years. And while there, I kind of cut my chops on just some side gigs here and there, learning marketing, web design, and kind of dived into the entrepreneurship journey at that time.
Awesome. And so one thing that I think a lot of listeners always struggle with is they want to be an entrepreneur, they want to go out on their own, and coming up with the idea is usually something that's super difficult for them. So how did you, what was your process? How did you stumble upon this concept?
Well, I have, it's funny. I get asked that a lot. And I think the first thing to realize is it never happens right away. Like, I can't tell you how many ideas we've had along the way that didn't go anywhere, that we spent a ton of time trying to grow and get to work, and they just didn't, and we lost a lot of money along the way. And it's a learning process. I think I forget the quote, but I know there's been a lot of people who've said something along these lines where, success, it does not happen overnight. Obviously, there's a million failures along the way. And that's definitely the case here. So we're grateful that Manly Bands took off. It was a culmination of all of our knowledge and experience from all the other things that we tried to do that didn't work out. So in the case of Manly Bands, it really was a journey where we tried to solve a problem that we understood because we had the problem. So my wife, Michelle, and I, we sat down and said, okay, we had just moved to Florida from Los Angeles. We were taking a break. We got married. And we said, okay, let's go to Florida and see what we can do there. Just take a break and get away from Los Angeles for a little bit. And we said, okay, well, we need income. So what are we going to do? And at first, we thought it was going to be real estate photography. We had a whole setup. I had some experience in photography from my days at Getty, and we were going to do that. And Michelle was going to help me with marketing and just the overall shooting of the homes and things of that nature. And we quickly found out that the realtors, at least in the area where we were, they were shooting house photos on their iPhone. They didn't really see the value in hiring a professional photographer and drones and all that stuff. So understanding that, we realized, okay, we need a plan B. And in our case, we said, okay, well, let's try to solve a problem that we understand. And so that really kind of led us to my experience with buying a wedding ring.
Absolutely. It's funny. You're not the first to say it's like, oh, I had a million ideas. And the one thing that I see in common with a lot of these conversations is they're like, it happened to me and I just realized that it shouldn't be this hard.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. And that's why, when it came time to kind of figure out what we wanted to do, we said, let's just make it personal. Let's make it something that we care about. Let's make it something we really understand. Because in the past, we had we'd rack our brains. My business partner at the time, he's now our CTO, and we tried so hard to come up with an idea. We would rack our brains for hours. We'd be like, all right, we can do bracelets, or we could, hey, what about this? What about that? And we would just kind of come up with random ideas that wouldn't necessarily be something that we loved. And I think that makes it harder when you're trying to create a product or a service when you don't really have a passion for it, because, entrepreneurship is all about long hours and stress and trying to figure things out. And I think if it's something you at least appreciate, like, and can identify with, it makes that journey just a little bit easier. And, ultimately we found that didn't work when we were trying to do the previous ideas. But with Manly Bands, because we understood it and connected with it, it worked out a little bit better.
Absolutely. All right. So you have stumbled across this idea, and how did you get started? What does that look like? I think a lot of people get caught up in the, I got to get a LLC set up and I got to get a bank account. How did it actually get started?
Well, that is definitely part of the process. You want to make sure you're legal and compliant and all that good stuff so it doesn't cause problems later. But for us, we first wanted to figure out, okay, what type of product are we making? Who's our audience? Why are we going to be going into this type of product, this industry? And, how are we going to do something different and unique enough that it'll stand out from the competition? Because there's always going to be competition. How are we different, and how are our customers going to appreciate us? So the first thing we did was discuss, okay, what were the problems that are making us want to even do this? So we said, okay, what was our wedding ring story? And we kind of reviewed it. And it was the same as a lot of men out there. They go into a jewelry store with their future wife. And in my case, I have large fingers. And I went into a jeweler. He couldn't size me because his sizer only went up to size 12. And he also told me, hey, there's our little case of rings in the back of the store. Go pick one from over there, and maybe I can order your size, and it'll be here in a couple of weeks. And so there are a couple of problems with that. I go to the back of the store, and literally there was 5 or 6 rings. There was a gold one, a silver one, and a black one. And I'm like, what? I don't even know what I'm doing. Like, I don't wear jewelry. I don't know what size I am. And these are all just kind of boring rings. Like, I wasn't excited. And I remember looking over to Michelle, and, she had several cases of options. And, she was super excited. She's like, oh, I can do diamonds, or I can do this, or then there's this one that's kind of curved, kind of funny, and this one has a cool material on it. And I just kind of felt a little left out. I'm like, the wedding ring experience really isn't designed for guys. You go in there and you're such an afterthought. Never mind the fact that the rings are also super expensive also, even for a simple design. So it was just a bad experience all around. And I ended up going online and just buying from some random no-name site that didn't have a warranty. The ring literally came in a little plastic bag, a little baggie. It wasn't in a box. There was no receipt. There was no customer service. Like, it was just like, wow, this is my wedding ring. Like, this is supposed to be something I'm wearing the rest of my life. And here I am, and it's just like something else I'm ordering off the line. So it was, we talked about that. We realized, wow, we could innovate this area just with some common sense, and some customer service and things like that. And so we put our heads together and we said, all right, let's do this. And so I had some skills, like I mentioned, in web design and marketing. My wife is just super creative. She was an actor in Hollywood, and it was the kind of thing where she had all these great ideas for descriptions and names, and it just kind of made the brand a little different, and it helped our customers identify with the ring. So instead of it being, 8mm cobalt chrome ring, it was like the Savant or the Hero. And I think it just kind of made the buying experience a little different than what you get at a regular jewelry store. So we just kind of took that concept and built it up and ran with it.
Awesome. So what, you've got the website up and running. What was like the go-to-market strategy? What was the launch strategy? What, the first week of the first month look like?
Yeah, for sure. So in the first month, we it was all about building the infrastructure for the site, trying to find various suppliers that Michelle could then design some rings that were unique to us. Because, doing competitive research, we saw some of the other stuff that was out there, and it wasn't that dissimilar from what you would see in a regular jewelry store. And we knew we wanted something different, to kind of stand out a little bit. So she worked with them initially, and we came up with a whole workflow on how the orders would be placed and what materials we were going to use. While I was kind of working on the creative side of things and the website side, built that out on Shopify. Took photos of the rings once we got the samples in, and just kind of built out our customer service policies and things like that, and kind of put it all together. And then slowly started testing creative and ads using Facebook, and then keyword ads on Google, and just slowly moved forward. And then I'd say probably 2 or 3 weeks later, we got our first sale. And we were like, oh, this is interesting. Let's see what happens the next day. And we got another sale. And then a couple of days later, we had 2 sales. And we just started trying to improve the process. So we said, okay, now what can we do to continually improve and iterate and optimize?
There's so much there that I want to call out. The first is you just went live and you just kept doing the thing over and over until it worked. It didn't work immediately, which is something I want to highlight to all the listeners that are scared to get started. It's not going to work immediately. If it does, congratulations, I guess. You're one of the lucky ones. And then the concept of constant iteration. I mean, you have been doing this for quite a while now. Do you feel like your website's done? Is it perfect?
Oh, no, it's never done. Yeah. there's always...
I knew the answer.
No, of course. No, there's always room to improve. Our tech team, Scott, our CTO, and my business partner in the past, is just a genius and is always looking to improve everything. So, he would never settle, even if we felt like things were amazing. He'd be like, well, we can do this and we should try this. And, just this past week, his team, him, Zach, and Arthur, it's a small development team we have in-house, but they are just amazing. And they sped up our website like 10 times what it was before by doing some sort of headless technology thing. And I'm like, wow, I don't even know what this means anymore, but man, it's awesome. So yeah, it's, entrepreneurship is a journey. It's not instant success ever. And in our case, it wasn't in the beginning. It took time. And, certainly we tried other things that didn't work either. But yeah, it takes time. And if you're not constantly improving, it's probably not going to work in the long run.
Absolutely. So is there anything that stands out to you that you wish you had a time machine, you could go back in time and say, Johnathan, don't do that?
Oh, lots of things. Relating to the business?
Yes, specifically the business.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a mildly shorter list, but not really. No, off the top of my head, we in the beginning, there was a time after the first month or so where we were like, okay, let's hire an agency. Let's do this. Let's, get a 3PL and all this kind of like fast growth stuff. And we were trying to get ahead of the curve, or what we thought the success would look like. And it ended up that we were doing it a little too soon. And I think, I had read, hey, get things in a 3PL so you can focus on this. Well, the problem was, the 3PL we went with was horrible, and it was a huge waste of resources and very expensive. And it just took a lot of time to get set up, and then it didn't work. And it took our focus away from probably what is the most important part of a business, I think, especially an online business. And that's making sure that you have an incredible product and incredible customer service. The marketing, shipping times, returns and exchanges, those are all super important, but that's not as important as making sure that you initially have a high quality product and that you're taking care of your customers. And so we realized that very shortly thereafter, and made sure to go back and make sure that was all taken care of before we, started crazy expansion plans. But it was a bit of an eye opener, because it became very stressful in the beginning when we were trying to do those things. And I think at least on the marketing side, another thing I would say would be, you have to get in there and understand your audience, and doing that audience research and really knowing their personas and how you're targeting them and things like that is just critical. And in the beginning, we were just kind of guessing. We're like, well, if I were to buy this ring, I probably would, live in a city and I would have an income of X, and I might have, I'm obviously in a relationship. And it turned out it was the exact opposite, which we found out like 4 months later. It was more people who did not live in a city. It was just a very different persona than we had thought. And then our marketing improved immensely once we realized that.
Absolutely. I want to point out that you said hiring an agency too soon. That's something that I think a lot of entrepreneurs do, is they come up with a good idea and then they think that an agency is going to make it work, which is a farce. I mean, that's never going to work. An agency will never help you find product market fit. An agency knows how to optimize. An agency knows how to pour gas on an existing fire. They will never be able to help you start a fire. There might be some really amazing consultants out there that's what they do and they're really good at it, but I've yet to find one that I'd recommend. So a lot of this comes down to a founder and whoever's on that core team. It's up to you guys to really get to from 0 to 1.
Totally agree. And I think exactly, they can put gasoline on the fire, but the fire needs to be there. And if you don't have a total understanding of your product and your fulfillment strategies and your manufacturing strategies and your demographic and your audience and all that stuff already set up, it's really hard for someone to come in and figure it out, especially when they're not as close to it as you are. So it's critical you have complete understanding of your business before you start working with other companies. Yeah.
And with that all being said, once you do get that traction going, it's definitely, you should reach out to people smarter than you and hire the best you can afford, because you'll just see the exponential growth start to happening. It's awesome.
Absolutely.
If you're struggling with scaling your sales, maybe Electric Eye can help. Our team has helped our clients generate millions of dollars in additional revenue through our unique brand scaling framework. You can learn more about our agency at electriceye.io. That's electriceye.io. Mesa is the easiest way to integrate any top e-commerce app or service with your online store. Designed exclusively for Shopify and Shopify Plus, Mesa's automated workflows can get back your time spent on repetitive tasks while growing your business at the same time. Join other merchants that have embraced the simplicity of Mesa's no-code approach to building workflows. You can create new ways to improve customer engagement, encourage repeat purchases without lifting a finger, reduce manual data entry, and more through a simple point-and-click interface. And with Black Friday, Cyber Monday planning around the corner, now is the time to ask the question, is my online store prepared? Optimizing every step in the shopping experience is the only way to create a lifelong customer. Get Mesa and capitalize on one of the biggest e-commerce events of the year. Search Mesa in the Shopify App Store and download the app today. Our partner Rewind can protect your Shopify store with automated backups of your most important data. Rewind should be the first app you install to protect your store against human error, misbehaving apps, or collaborators gone bad. It's like having your very own magic undo button. Trusted by over 80,000 businesses, from side hustles to the biggest online retailers like Gymshark, Gatorade, and Movement Watches. Best of all, merchants like you can get 1 month of automated Shopify backups for free by visiting rewind.io/honest. That's rewind.io/honest. Hey everybody, do you want to win back valuable lost time for your support team? Gorgias has machine learning functionality that takes the pressure off small support teams and gives them the tools to manage a large number of inquiries at scale, especially during the holiday season. Gorgias combines all your different communication channels like email, SMS, social media, live chat, and even phone into one platform and gives you an organized view of all of your customer inquiries. Their powerful functionality can save your support team hours per day and makes managing customer orders a breeze. They have allowed online merchants to close tickets faster than ever with the help of pre-written responses integrated with customer data to increase the overall efficiency of customer support. Their built-in automations also free up time for support agents to give better answers to complex product-related questions, providing next-level support, which helps increase sales, brand loyalty, and recognition. Eric Brandholtz, the founder of Beard Brand, says, "We're a 7-figure business and we have essentially one person on customer support and experience. It's impossible to do it without tools like Gorgias to help us innovate." Learn how to level up your customer support by speaking to their team here. Visit gorgias.grsm.io/honest. That's gorgias.grsm.io/honest. Businesses are the most successful when they own their own data, customer relationships, and their growth. That's why more than 50,000 e-commerce brands, big and small, trust Klaviyo to deliver their ideal customer experience. Klaviyo is the ultimate e-commerce marketing platform for online brands of all kinds and all sizes. With email automation, SMS marketing, list growth tools, and more, you'll get everything you need to build strong relationships that keep your customers coming back. If you're tired of relying too heavily on paid advertising or third-party marketplaces for your sales success, you're not alone. It's time to take back control of the customer experience. More and more online businesses are moving to Klaviyo to grow higher value customer relationships through personalized email and SMS marketing, and the results are staggering. Ready to drive future sales and higher customer lifetime value with a marketing platform built for your long-term growth? You should get a free trial of Klaviyo over at klaviyo.com/honest. That's KLAVIYO.com/HONEST. So back to the brand. You guys, you had this initial success. What happened in kind of that growth phase where you guys, it really locked in? You're like, all right, this is working. We know what's going on here. Was there like a certain thing that happened?
Well, I think it was really understanding that that demographic and that audience base, and then once we've kind of realized that, it was super helpful to then kind of change our content and our strategy and our creative and things like that to have it make sense, to the point where we even adjusted product descriptions to kind of lean a little bit more into that demographic. And that made a huge difference. So once we got to that point and we felt like we had a good understanding on that, and the customer service was where we needed it to be, because in the beginning, that's where we really invested the most resources, was customer service and marketing. And then once that was dialed in, then we started working on overall customer experience, not just customer service, but the overall experience. So packaging, fulfillment times, shipping times, and things like that.
What I'm hearing now with learning about the customer persona and really diving in on that is you found what worked and you doubled down on it instead of trying another strategy. And that's kind of what I want to highlight to the listeners is when you find what works, go all in. It's not time to find another strategy to kind of half-ass. It's like run that initial strategy until you can't grow it anymore.
I totally agree. Yeah, that's really the key is, once you dial that in and you understand your customer base, there's just so many different things you can do by using that as the foundation and then growing on it. So, if we're talking Facebook, you can layer in different interest groups that are in your foundation. So, there's all sorts of places to find your customers, whether it's on Google, Facebook, Pinterest. I mean, we're everywhere now. We're running TV ads. which has been very eye-opening just to see like where the most successful markets are for us, like demographically, which only further helps us identify the demographic and dial that in. And I think, as you do more and more marketing and you're seeing success or even not having success, it's all about learning. And all of that data, whether it's positive or negative, is super valuable because it should always define how you adjust your marketing plans and how you change the course of your business based on what people are responding to. So I totally agree. Once you have that dialed in, definitely start to grow from it, but keep learning too, because you may find other things that just further optimize your campaigns and your strategy.
Absolutely. So you mentioned that you guys are, everywhere, quote unquote, now. You weren't at the beginning. So how was that approach?
Yeah. So in the beginning, it was Facebook and Google. And Google, it was just like keyword searches. It wasn't Google Shopping or display or anything like that. Mostly it was Facebook. We've always found Facebook drives the most traffic. But Google, of course, has a better conversion rate because it's an intent-based platform. So, but it was kind of a combination of the two. We'd run branding campaigns, keyword campaigns on Google, and then prospecting and remarketing campaigns over on Facebook. And that's what really grew the business for probably 3 years or so. We're about 6 years now. And I'd say the first half of our evolution was pretty simple. And still today, Google and Facebook are definitely the largest platforms that we use. But, one of the biggest mistakes, to go back to your mistake question, is email marketing. And not that that's a mistake. It's not doing email marketing that's the mistake. Because I was kind of managing most of the marketing and it was really Michelle and I and one or two other people in the first year. And then we slowly started bringing on other remote staff to help us out in the years thereafter. But because it was me in the beginning, it's a lot to do. And I understood the value of email, but I just didn't have the time. And eventually I saw the light and said, we really need to be doing email marketing. And so we kind of put a program together and started working with some outside help to get that going. And, we weren't doing anything beyond the normal, you get your receipt via email. And I think we had an abandoned cart Shopify app that was helping us out with the abandoned cart emails. But in terms of like just sending out new product drops or sending out just information about the company or even capturing email, not from customers, but just capturing like a pop-up to get people to, leave an email for their discount code or something. We hadn't done that. And let me tell you, that is a huge mistake. If you're not capturing an email list, you are definitely not doing everything you can to grow your business, because right now email, I think, equates to something like 15%, 20% of our revenue. And it's massively important. So I would definitely recommend that.
Absolutely. So just going back to kind of the iterations on which channels you're using, was it very leading question here, but I'm assuming it was starting with Facebook and Google, and then you added just one more at a time.
Yeah, we started slow, because it was just a small team managing it. Now we have a much larger team, and we're, like I was saying, we're trying everything, more of an omni-channel approach. But yeah, in the beginning, so Facebook, Google, then we added email, and we experimented with Snapchat and Pinterest. It didn't really work out back then. Now we're doing Pinterest more, and it's working. But and then we moved on. We added Bing. Then we added display ads. We used services like Klaviyo and Steelhouse for a while. Now we're using like Verizon Media, which is a great display partner of ours. Taboola, doing some of that native content. It took us a while to get into that, but we found that it works really well for remarketing if done right. And then, we've now grown into podcasts and television as well. So we're always trying to be where our customers are. And that also goes back to understanding your demographic. If your customers are on podcasts, then you need to be advertising on podcasts. Our customers watch TV, like most customers, so we want to be on TV. So it's all about growing that channel where your demographic is really present. And then, we have a policy here where we put most of those profits back into those channels so we can continue to scale it up.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the highlight of the whole conversation is, find the channels that work and hone in on them, optimize them. And then when you have some time, add one at a time, hone in, optimize, or it may not work. And then just toss it aside and try a new one. But if you add 3 or 4 channels at once, it's going to just be a bad time.
It is. I totally agree with that, because, it takes time to optimize each channel. And if you have 3 or 4 going, the way you want to look at it is as a holistic thing, because, attribution is still really difficult today, especially with all the iOS changes.
Even more difficult today than it was like 3 months ago.
Even more difficult, right? So it's crazy. So, it's important to do one at a time. Otherwise, you're really not going to know which one's being successful. So, and then optimizing it will be a nightmare. So at least if you add one and then you see a change, you can be like, okay, well, that's because of this one. Whereas if you have 3 or 4, it's really difficult and expensive.
Absolutely. Well, Johnathan, I can't thank you enough for coming on the podcast today. Is there anything that I forgot to ask that you want to leave with our listeners?
No, I hope that some of this information has been useful, and I love helping out other entrepreneurs. So if anybody ever wants to reach out, feel free to reach out to me. My email is john@manlybands.com, and I am happy to share my experience and offer any advice I can.
Absolutely. And for those of you that are in the market for a wedding ring, where should they go?
Oh, got to check out manlybands.com.
Yeah, get yourself a dinosaur wedding band. That sounds amazing.
Cool. Well, hey, thanks for having me, Chase. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on. All right. I can't thank our guests enough for coming on the show and sharing their knowledge and journey with us. We've got a lot to think about and potentially add into our own business. You can find all the links in the show notes. Make sure you head over to honestecommerce.co to check out all of the other amazing content that we have. Make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and obviously, if you're thinking about growing your business, check out our agency at electriceye.io. Until next time.